250 daring men and women are climbing toward the summit of Mount Everest, the highest point on Earth. Some will succeed, most will fail, 7 will die.
Problem.
I'm on my own here. I doubt anyone's sleeping. The wind is pounding. I don't think anyone will be sleeping through the night. Over.
After 45 days of struggle on Mount Everest, Shauna Burke is trapped in a tent within striking distance of the summit. Her supplies are running out, her body is dehydrating, and the frozen wind is now gusting at 120 kilometers an hour. She's got to leave this place, but the mountain has her petrified. Down below, in the calm safety of base camp, expedition leader Ben Webster is tormented. He is supposed to be up there with Shauna. He wants to be up there with her. Shauna's not just his climbing partner, she's his girlfriend.
South Col to Discovery, over.
Base camp to South Col, over.
Yeah, South Col, over.
How you doing this morning there, baby?
Shauna's not doing well. Her oxygen is dwindling, her heartbeat is racing, and hurricane-force winds are holding her hostage in a nylon bubble at an altitude that is literally killing her.
Here we are, up at the South Col. I spent the night, last night, by myself in the tent. I did pretty well throughout the night, but got quite scared come 5 o'clock in the morning when the winds were still howling. I thought that maybe my tent would get blown, you know, right off the face. So it got a little bit scary, but I made it through the night. Hopefully we won't have to do it again tonight.
Team leader Ben Webster knows the cold reality of Shauna's situation. 4 years ago, after successfully summiting Everest, Ben almost didn't make it down. Altitude sickness immobilized him in the exact same spot Shauna's stuck in now. Ben knows that if the winds up there don't die, there's a good chance his girlfriend will.
You just gotta roll with this and believe in your heart of hearts that you're gonna get your shot. That the weather will come good late tonight and you'll get your shot, over.
Okay, I'll keep my fingers crossed.
In terms of ultimate goal, everybody comes home. To my mind, an expedition is not successful if you were to summit and lose somebody in the way.
I don't see it as something natural that I'm consciously putting myself into an environment where I could possibly die. So I'm aware that it could happen, but it does sit on me. And the way I try to cope with it is try not to think about it very often, and so it doesn't overwhelm me and paralyze me.
Shauna's confidence has come a long way from Kathmandu, where she was overwhelmed by the city and intimidated by the professional climbers Ben hired to accompany them on this voyage. Andrew Locke, a 2-time Everest summiter, and Hector Posteleon, also a 2-time conqueror. If everything goes exactly as planned, these 4 souls will climb to the top of the highest mountain in the world, and they will document the journey every step of the way. But first, they have to learn to get along.
Climbers, as a rule, especially elite high-altitude mountaineers, I don't know why, but they tend to be very socially challenged. My experience with most of them is that they're not the kind of people you want to hang out with a lot of the time. They're very self-consumed, very ego-driven, in some cases very socially inept because they spend all their time in the mountains not interacting with people. And that's not the case in both Hector and Andrew.
Yeah.
Shauna's climbing partners should be giving her their grand tour of Nepal's capital city right now. But instead of bonding with them, Shauna's throwing up in her hotel room.
I gotta pick up my washing.
Last time I was here was just 6 months ago. Feels like I was here yesterday for me, actually.
Yeah.
The people of Kathmandu are used to seeing mountain climbers. All the greats have walked these streets. Sir Edmund Hillary, Tenzing Norgay, George Mallory. This section, called Tamil, is where they came to search out bargains en route to the summit.
It's a buzz to be a part of that same industry, if you like. That those great names came and climbed these huge mountains years before us, and now we're climbing those same mountains. They're coming through the same jumping off point, and that's really exciting. There you go. Here's a bit of gear.
On the wall, Hector is about to see something he dearly loves. Not climbing gear, his girlfriend, Araceli Segarra.
The person here in front, in the yellow down suit, is Araceli, my girlfriend. She's always with me, she's always present, you know, and I know she's back home thinking about me too and supporting this, so that's good too.
Hector and Andrew are geared up, healthy and ready to climb Mount Everest. Shauna is not.
She's still slowly recovering. She asked if she could bail from dinner tonight, and I said absolutely. If she's not feeling right, she should gain her strength.
I actually, unfortunately, I didn't go out to dinner with the team last night, which I felt really bad about. I haven't had the chance yet to get to know everybody and to talk with them one-on-one, just because I've been feeling under the weather. My body has just been really, really, really tired, and I think it's partially due to the fact of the stress and the preparation that we went through before leaving for Kathmandu, and as well as the flight and just being in Kathmandu. The city is very dirty and chaotic and quite overwhelming.
After 3 days, Shauna feels strong enough to emerge.
Priority list. She doesn't want to be seen as the woman or the weak link in the chain. And I don't doubt for a second she's going to work hard to prove to us that she isn't a weak link. I think she's going to find it hard because she hasn't done lots of other 8,000 metre climbing, and it's just a different world up there.
After a week in Kathmandu, Team Discovery heads for the airport. Here, they hook up with members of their Sherpa team and fly to Lukla, a remote village carved into the side of the Himalaya. This is where the first steps to the summit will be taken. No more vehicles, no more civilization. Now, it's just you and the mountain. Everest. To stand on its summit is to be at the height commercial airliners fly. It's the pinnacle of dreams for elite mountaineers. Many have perished trying to reach its summit. More than 180 people have died on the mountain. One for about every 30 attempting to climb it, or one for every 7 who have reached the summit. Everest can be a place where people can't see or move, where tents are ripped apart, where all the high-tech gear in the world can't save you. And yet this season, 250 Western climbers will attempt to summit, and some will die trying. Not known as the most technical mountain to climb, it's still among the most treacherous, with its sheer altitude and the ever-changing weather. The Discovery team flies into Lukla, altitude 2,800 meters. From here, they will trek to base camp. It's a rigorous 12-day walk, during which they will almost double their altitude to over 5,400 meters. This 42-kilometer trek is an important part of acclimatizing to thin air. If someone from sea level was immediately transported to base camp, that person would be unconscious within a few hours, and they'd die soon afterwards. You might think that the team would use this trek as a last chance to get to know each other before beginning their climb. But until now, they work in splinter groups, all hiking at their own pace. Today, the 12th day, the team finally come together for the walk into base camp, an inhospitable lunar landscape that will serve as the expedition's nerve center. This is it, base camp. Welcome home.
Yeah, it's just funny. It just feels like I was here yesterday. Nothing's changed. I mean, the glacier changes, but
I spent such a big part of my life in this base camp that it's like coming home again.
The support staff got here days ago and have already set to work clearing ground for Team Discovery's camp.
Oh, Lakpagilo. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, how are you?
Good, thanks. How you feeling?
It's good, yeah.
Excellent. Sangha, how are you? Mingma, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you, Lama. How are you? Come and say hello, Gopal. Oh, without the knife, don't kill me.
All in all, about 30 people will work for this team. 16 Sherpa climbers, as well as an ethnically diverse group of men who will act as porters, runners, camp staff, and cooks. There's also a doctor and a communications expert.
Again, you got lots of humidity the day before.
Right now, Ben is speaking with his head climber, the famous Lakpa Gelu Sherpa. Lakpa Gelu holds the world speed record on Everest from base camp to summit in under 11 hours. He and his right-hand man, Mingma Sherpa, have an incredible 19 Everest summits between them. Attempting to summit without Sherpas is as dangerous as attempting to summit without oxygen.
Spin that way. Yeah. We're trying to create a big platform here for our communications stand. So, it means a lot of BF and I. Brute force and ignorance. Strong back, weak mind. All right, ready?
While the men set up camp, the only female in the crew stands back, doubts her abilities, and has second thoughts.
I would say the last couple of days I've been feeling a little bit intimidated by the mountain itself, and I began questioning whether I really belonged here and whether I really had what it takes to make it to the summit of Mount Everest. And I think the reason that was happening was because I'm surrounded by such a strong team. Both Hector, AJ, as well as Ben are very, very physically fit. I'm physically fit as well, but they're on a different level. And I think their mental toughness is also something that is extremely that they're extremely good at.
Perfect.
There are no permanent fixtures built at base camp. That's because base camp moves. It's an active glacier that melts and shifts and changes shape as each day gets warmer. To make it more challenging, there's no electricity, no plumbing, and the nearest store is 3 hours away. Another problem, real estate's getting scarce.
It's pretty crowded, but that's the nature of the game. It's a restricted space, a finite base camp. But yeah, we've got some great equipment here, and the boys are right into setting it up.
Even though I've been here twice before and I've reached the summit on both occasions, it's always exciting to climb Everest. Offers so many different challenges and dangers and difficulties. Every time I come back, it's different. You know, the icefall is always going to be there, and it's always going to be dangerous and exposed every time you go through. It's exciting as well as fearful.
Okay. Did you need some help organizing?
Could I ask you for something?
Yeah, of course.
Till Baburam,
Yep.
we need chocolate powder.
Like chocolate milk powder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Milk.
Yeah.
Powder milk. And sugar.
Okay.
You don't just pack your bag and head off for the summit of Mount Everest. There's still a month's worth of work and acclimatization that has to happen. The team's plan is to fully stock 4 camps with food and oxygen. Oxygen is what makes this climb deadly. There just isn't enough of it high up on the mountain, so climbers go up and down in stages, forcing their bodies to create extra red blood cells. This allows them to absorb more oxygen with each breath.
It's a complementary process, really. We need to establish our camps and establish the route, and we need to acclimatise. So by carrying loads up to a higher camp and then coming back down to sleep, we're forcing the body to acclimatise to a higher altitude.
On the climb, the team has 2 opponents. Most obvious is the mountain. Less apparent is time. The south side of Mount Everest is a Nepalese national park, and the infrastructure set up to help climbers will all be shut down on June 1st. That's in 8 weeks. When acclimatization, climbing, and weather are all factored in, it usually comes down to just a 7-day window when summiting is possible. Maybe it will be impossible. Mount Everest is blanketed in religion, superstition, and myth. Many Sherpas and Westerners believe you can't climb the mountain at will. She must let you climb her. The Sherpa people call the mountain Sagarmatha, or Chomolungma, and they revere her as sacred. Before every expedition, the Sherpas hold a religious ceremony. A high-ranking Buddhist Lama is summoned, offerings created, and climbing gear gathered for a service known as the puja.
I definitely want to take my harness and my Jumar up there. That definitely gotta be blessed. I'm picking the gear that we're taking to the puja, and this is pretty much the gear that we want to get blessed in this ceremony, that we want to have the Lama blessed in this ceremony, you know, for good luck, for good karma up in the mountain. So I'm picking like the most important pieces of my gear, which are the harness, Jumar, ice axe, boots, and crampons.
A stone altar called a lapso is built in the middle of Team Discovery's camp. Whenever any climber is on the mountain, aromatic sprigs of juniper must smolder constantly on the lapso. It's a complex ritual, but at its heart, the Lama is asking the goddess of Mount Everest for permission to climb. He blesses the climbers and prays for safe passage.
I respect tremendously and have a sensitivity to their own connection to the mountain and what it means. And certainly for them it's important. At the end of the day, these men that I climb with, speaking of the Sherpas, will have my life in their hands. And I will at some point probably have their life in my hands. And so that trust has to be there. And one of the things you want to do is build that trust by respecting each other's culture and belief system.
These are not decorative flags. They are prayer flags, always hung in odd numbers. They must never come down while the climb is underway. The climbers receive their sunjis, deeply symbolic and worn by everyone on the mountain. Sunjis are a necklace made of red string. In the middle they have what is called a protection knot. These knots must never be undone, and during the climb, the sunjis must never come off. Something spiritual happens to people who come here. It can be life-changing. Mount Everest is a higher power. With the puja ceremony over, the Sherpas head off to set up Camp 1. To reach the summit, Everest climbers use just a few simple tools: boots with crampons attached, an ice axe, and a sender, also called a Jumar, to help pull themselves up the fixed ropes, and a harness with carabiners for locking into safety lines. Andrew and Hector prep their gear and double-check their backup supplies. You never know what might save your life on Everest.
Extra light bolts.
These are my old Faithfuls, good heavy-duty steel ones, which I'll use between base and Camp 2. But the good thing about these is that if my lightweight ones should break, these also fit my high-altitude boots.
Harness with Jumar and eye screw. Okay. Polypro shirts, hats.
I just cut up a bit of sleeping pad foam and taped it over the head of the axe, because the reality is on this climb it's not very steep. I'll be using my axe more as a walking stick than as a climbing tool. So with my hand over the top of the axe all the time, the cold of the metal would suck the heat straight through my very heavy-duty mittens and probably lead to frostbite.
There's probably
While Ben deals with more logistical details, Shauna packs her bag, then his. More than 5 kilometers above sea level is a rough place to live, but compared to where the climbers are headed, base camp is like a health spa. Climbing officially kicks off tomorrow with a trek over the icefall, a spectacular death trap that's infamous for having air pockets, crevasses, and an appetite for climbers. Climbing Mount Everest officially starts today. Team Discovery still hasn't formed a strong social bond. For professionals, that's no problem. In fact, it's normal.
Until now, no complaints. For as far as the core climbing team of Ben, Shauna, Hector and myself goes, I have a very good feeling. I very much enjoy Hector's company and trekking with Hector. I'm sure he's going to be very strong on the mountain. Ben obviously is very tied up with the management and logistical side of this expedition, and that should ease off for him in the next few days. So haven't had much interaction with him.
I feel very good about how things are coming together right now. Both Andrew and Hector are pretty much as advertised, real hard men.
I'm feeling very good about the whole team, about everyone that's gonna be on the climb. Especially, I really like Ben's way of leading this team, you know.
Shauna is very quiet, but she's very nice, and I'm sure she's keen to get on with the climb as well.
Every day that I wake up, I sort of have to pinch myself and say, here you are, you're at Everest, you're doing this, you're one of the climbers, you're not just one of the trekkers coming up here.
So, all in all, pretty happy.
Everest could be considered the world's ultimate obstacle course, where a mistake could end your life. Today, the team turns their back on the safety of base camp. Destination, Camp 1, which has already been set up by the Sherpas. Getting there is no cakewalk. For starters, they must negotiate the Khumbu Icefall, a deadly mess of slow-moving ice, riddled with crevasses, drop-offs, and the ghosts of 20 fallen climbers.
The easiest way to describe the Khumbu Icefall for a layman is think of it as a moving river of ice. You have to make your peace before you even go into it.
Before anyone from the core team sets foot onto the icefall, lead Sherpa climber Lakpagelu gets the juniper fire going strong. Prayers are said, thoughts are gathered, and the climb is on. The icefall is one of the most dangerous sections on the entire mountain. 10% of Everest deaths happen here. Unfortunately, climbers must travel back and forth over this minefield repeatedly if they're going to summit. And they never get used to the icefall, because it's a flowing, freezing, thawing, cracking, shifting glacier that is different every day. Even the marked trail moves and warps. Sometimes it breaks away to nothing, vanishing right out from under the feet of a climber. When this happens, the Sherpas call it a one-way ticket to America.
In all the seasons that I've been here, this icefall has never been the same 2 times running. It's just so broken up, just so chopped up every single time. You feel those little rumbles, those little thumps underneath your feet. And you just never know if it's the little one or the big one. I'm always glad to get out of here.
Getting through the icefall is scheduled to take 4 hours. If they do it and reach Camp 1, the team will have gained 600 meters in altitude. That's like climbing to the top of Toronto's CN Tower, twice. Some crevasses are small enough to leap. Bigger ones are bridged with aluminum ladders. Meet the Icefall Doctor, perhaps the most famous man on Mount Everest. For 28 years, this Sherpa has made it his business to bridge any gap in the icefall. This particular crevasse has been spanned by 4 household ladders, lashed together with half-inch polypropylene rope. Head Sherpa Lakpagelu is very familiar with the skywalks constructed by his friend. Still, he clips his harness into the safety line before setting across. Structural engineering has turned into a family business for the Icefall Doctor. This year, his son is working with him. After 5 hours of climbing, the team stands in a dreamland 5,900 meters above sea level, a full kilometer higher than any peak in Europe. The icefall is behind them, but that's a little comfort. This beautiful weather is creating perfect avalanche conditions. Discovery has made it to the first of 4 camps they plan to establish on the face of Mount Everest. This is an exciting day. Being here means the dream has really begun.
And I'm happy to be up here. I mean, before you spend your first night up here, you really don't feel like you're actually climbing the mountain. So tonight's gonna be our first night up here, for 4 of us at least, and that's always good. The first, as I say, the first night. let's see what tomorrow brings.
Tomorrow brings snow. It snows deep into the night. The following morning, snow falls again, this time from a clear blue sky. As dawn breaks on the mountain, an avalanche breaks off it.
This morning, we had 2 big releases. Doesn't surprise me because it snowed quite a bit. And you can see, if you looking at these mountains or at these faces yesterday, there was quite some ice there. So all the snow that fell last night wouldn't like stick to that ice. So the moment the temperature changed a little bit, boom, and that's when the release occurs. I'm sure we're gonna be seeing more today. It's a clear day, no clouds, so the sun is gonna hit hard on those slopes, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna be seeing a few more big ones too.
On Everest, avalanches are simply a way of life. They're also a way of death. When you dive deep underwater, pressure can force your eardrum to flex inward, causing intense pain. At altitude, the phenomenon is reversed, and it can feel like your head will explode.
It's like somebody's taking a couple of needles and it's just driving into the ears. At the moment.
Do you want me to radio down to Matt and ask him if he...
Well, I just took some sinus medicine. I'm hoping that'll help clear the passages. But this is not a lot of fun at the moment.
Even without a sinus condition, Everest can be a high-pressure head game. You want your thoughts to remain positive. However, there are variables beyond your control, like who sets up camp beside you. In Camp 1, Team Discovery has a neighbor whose presence is messing with Hector's head. Meet Andreas, leader of a climbing team that has the same summit plan as Team Discovery. Andreas and Hector have a long and shocking personal history that is so full of life and death, it's almost impossible for non-climbers to believe.
I know some of the guys in this team, specifically this guy named Andres. I climbed a lot with him in the past. We haven't climbed though in many years.
Why haven't they climbed in many years? In 1996, Hector saved Andreas' life on this very mountain. Then a few years later, Andreas left Hector for dead in a deep crevasse of ice. Hector survived and vowed never to climb with Andreas again. At today's frigid reunion, their history goes unmentioned. Climbing Mount Everest allows no room for personal politics, just work. The next goal is to fix safety ropes on the Lhotse face. Once in place, every climbing team will be able to climb into these communal ropes and use them for going up and down. The exhausting work of fixing the lines is usually done by Sherpas, but Hector wants to be involved and challenges Andreas to join him.
Our proposition would be, you guys go down now, right?
Yeah.
You think you can wait down there for 4 or 5 days? Then we come down, rest 2 or 3 days, then I come up with you, and I'll bring 2 of my Sherpas. As far as rope goes, we have enough, and then we'll start fixing the Lhotse face, and if we can make it in 1 day up to Camp 3. Sounds good?
I'm sure on a long day we can make it to Camp 3. We were thinking a rest of 3 days, but we can take 4 or 5, whatever is needed, so you can, we'll catch up with your itinerary.
Good.
And for sure we can put up 2 or 3 Sherpas and some rope. And
if the Lhotse face doesn't get fixed early, then everything is pushed back 2 or 3 weeks, and we don't want that. We want to be ready by the beginning of May, you know, and then if the weather allows, have an early summit.
Get better. Not as painful.
The team spends 2 lightheaded days at Camp 1. Oxygen levels here are half what they are at sea level. Lack of oxygen can confuse climbers. It's time to go back to base camp. For Shauna, it will be a paralyzing trip through the icefall. Team Discovery's camp has 25 tents. It's basically a neighborhood in a small village. Overall, base camp is home to 19 climbing teams. This Chilean team is one of them. British socialite Annabelle Bond is climbing with the Chilean team. Annabelle doesn't fit the stereotypical image of a grisly Mount Everest assaulter, but she is ready to take on this challenge with that same flair that women in her family have shown for generations.
My grandmother was one of the first Western women at altitude in Nepal, so I've got pictures of her in 1929 in the cool goggles and kind of blazers and +4s, and set against backgrounds like right behind me, and she's looking down in her crampons, and that's always been an inspiration to me. And she's still alive now. She's 96 and she's following this climb.
Annabelle's father owns the Hong Kong Bank. 50-year-old Chilean team leader Andronico Luksic also owns a bank. It cost a mountain of money to climb Everest, and two very different kinds of people managed to get here. Dedicated first-class mountaineers and globe-trotting adventurers who can afford it.
On the last time we did in Chile, I got frostbite on the end of all my fingers because we had to keep taking off and putting on our crampons, and I had like completely inappropriate gloves. So I still have really bad ends of my fingers, which I'm kind of worried about. Mum was the one that got me into it, and she met Andronico at a party, and she was bragging about my climbing, which I'm going to tell her to stop doing from now on. And, she was saying, my daughter's a climber. And he's like, would you like to come to Everest? And without even consulting me, she said, yeah. So the next thing is, she wakes me up, I'm like, late night in London, and she's like, darling, you're climbing Everest. That's kind of how it came about.
Are these Mount Everest rookies ready for the brutal punishment that's in store for them, more than 8,000 meters above sea level?
Being a long-distance runner, I keep myself fairly not Andrew Hector tuned, but my body's fairly tuned. Ever since I was invited to join the group, since August, I've been down. I've done, I think, 6 peaks between 19 and 22,500 down in Chile. And then I've been hiking the ski mountain in Aspen. Pretty intensely since August.
It's now the second week of April. As Annabelle and the Chilean team set off for Camp 1, Team Discovery leaves there, headed back down to base camp. This season, only 12 women are climbing Mount Everest. They follow each other's progress through word of mouth and by listening on the radio. They may never meet face to face, but there was a sisterhood amongst them, complete with sibling rivalry. They want to know, how strong is she? How fast is she? Will she get there before me? Odds are strongly against rookies making it to the summit. It will be especially difficult for Annabelle because no one on her core team has ever been there before. All of Shauna's core team has stood on the top of the world, including her boyfriend, Ben. Some people wouldn't want to be with their lover on an adventure like this. It could get too icy and tense for the relationship to survive. Climbing Mount Everest is not a date. It's a brush with death. Early in the icefall, Annabelle is stopped cold by a single ladder. To get to the top of Mount Everest, you need determination and creativity. Annabelle sees an obstacle and gets down to it.
Do it, but I just feel more comfortable like this. Stylish, I know. Sorry, just moved style. Oh my God, I have really sore knees. The higher you get, the more you realise what a huge mountain this is, and there's so much that can go on up there. I think the whole climb is one tough climb, and anyone who says it's fixed nines the whole way, I don't care, it is tough.
So far, Team Discovery has had good luck on their side. The weather has cooperated, everyone feels strong, and there have been no real mishaps to speak of. Even crossing these breathtaking ladders has gone without a hitch.
Always in the back of my mind there is that sort of fear that one misstep could lead to my death.
Slow and easy now. Be sure. Good girl.
My crampon got stuck. I actually told myself, don't look down, because that's when you're going to lose it and you'll panic. So I just focused on trying little strategies to sort of wiggle my foot to try to get it loose, but nothing was working.
Take a step backward, Asha.
One step back.
Take a step back.
Yeah.
That's it. You're good there.
Team leader Ben Webster steadies the lines. His girlfriend is frozen in midair, just a meter from safety. The crevasse she hovers over is the depth of a 10-story building. Mingma Sherpa has seen enough. It's time to fix this problem and get out of here.
He came right over to me and he tried to loosen my crampon from the ladder. He wasn't able to. So he came up with plan B, which was to actually take my crampon right off.
Part of the reason Shauna came to Mount Everest is to do research for her PhD in sports psychology. Her thesis paper is called Motivation in High-Altitude Climbing. As a psychologist, Shauna knows the danger of panic.
I think it's very important not to panic, because if you do panic when you're on a ladder like that, the possibility of losing your balance and falling over is extremely high, so I think it's very important to try to stay focused. He took the crampon right off my foot, and I was able to walk off the ladder.
In normal life, an incident like that would take weeks to become a funny story. Here, it's laughed about immediately. Climbers on Mount Everest live every second like it might be their last. It's the highest feeling in the world. On the next episode of Ultimate Survival, Everest, a sick doctor brings his virus to base camp.
Usually these things last 3 to 5 days, but who knows?
Ben descends to the edge of oblivion.
We're gonna go real slow and real careful on the way down.
And Annabelle stares death in the face.
I've just seen my first dead body. I'm not really enjoying that experience.
To get your shot, that the weather will come good late tonight and you'll get your shot. Over.
Okay, I'll keep my fingers crossed.
In terms of ultimate goal, everybody comes home. To my mind, an expedition is not successful if you were to summit and lose somebody in the way.
I don't see it as something natural that I'm consciously putting myself into an environment where I could possibly die. So I'm aware that it could happen, but it does sit on me. And the way I try to cope with it is try not to think about it very often, and so it doesn't overwhelm me and paralyze me.
Shauna's confidence has come a long way from Kathmandu, where she was overwhelmed by the city and intimidated by the professional climbers Ben hired to accompany them on this voyage. Andrew Locke, a 2-time Everest summiter, and Hector Posteleon, also a 2-time conqueror. If everything goes exactly as planned, these 4 souls will climb to the top of the highest mountain in the world, and they will document the journey every step of the way. But first, they have to learn to get along.
Climbers, as a rule, especially elite high-altitude mountaineers, I don't know why, but they tend to be very socially challenged. My experience with most of them is that they're not the kind of people you want to hang out with a lot of the time. They're very self-consumed, very ego-driven, in some cases very socially inept because they spend all their time in the mountains not interacting with people. And that's not the case in both Hector and Andrew.
Yeah.
Shauna's climbing partners should be giving her their grand tour of Nepal's capital city right now. But instead of bonding with them, Shauna's throwing up in her hotel room.
I gotta pick up my washing.
Last time I was here was just 6 months ago. Feels like I was here yesterday for me, actually.
Yeah.
The people of Kathmandu are used to seeing mountain climbers. All the greats have walked these streets. Sir Edmund Hillary, Tenzing Norgay, George Mallory. This section, called Tamil, is where they came to search out bargains en route to the summit.
It's a buzz to be a part of that same industry, if you like. That those great names came and climbed these huge mountains years before us, and now we're climbing those same mountains. They're coming through the same jumping off point, and that's really exciting.
Right now, 250 daring men and women are climbing toward the summit of Mount Everest, the highest point on Earth. Some will succeed, most will fail, 7 will die.
camp to South Call, over.
Yeah, South Call, over.
How you doing this morning there, baby?
Shauna's not doing well. Her oxygen is dwindling. Her heartbeat is racing, and hurricane-force winds are holding her hostage in a nylon bubble at an altitude that is literally killing her.
Here we are up at the South Pole. I spent the night last night by myself in the tent. I did pretty well throughout the night, but got quite scared come 5 o'clock in the morning when the winds were still howling. I thought that maybe my tent would get blown, you know, right off the face. So it got a little bit scary, but I made it through the night. Hopefully we won't have to do it again tonight.
Team leader Ben Webster knows the cold reality of Shauna's situation. 4 years ago, after successfully summiting Everest, Ben almost didn't make it down. Altitude sickness immobilized him in the exact same spot Shauna's stuck in now. Ben knows that if the winds up there don't die, there's a good chance his girlfriend will.
You just gotta roll with this and believe in your heart of hearts that you're gonna...
Pounding non-stop. It's actually quite scary in the tent. I'm always afraid that maybe the wind will get underneath the tent and blow it up.
Yeah, I think our only chance will be to maybe leave at midnight if they die out, but right now, I don't think there's a chance of hell, over.
Problem.
I'm on my own here. I doubt anyone's sleeping. The wind is pounding. I don't think anyone will be sleeping through the night, over.
After 45 days of struggle on Mount Everest, Shauna Burke is trapped in a tent within striking distance of the summit. Her supplies are running out, her body is dehydrating, and the frozen wind is now gusting at 120 kilometers an hour. She's got to leave this place, but the mountain has her petrified. Down below, in the calm safety of base camp, expedition leader Ben Webster is tormented. He is supposed to be up there with Shauna. He wants to be up there with her. Shauna's not just his climbing partner, she's his girlfriend.